Now, this is a viral video of an alleged social experiment which took place. I won't be able to actually play the video due to copyright, but I will describe what's happening in it. And I generally don't understand what type of parent would subject their child to this type of an experiment where they will be allowed to stay with 10 other kids that are strangers inside a big house. And the catch is that besides the cameraman, there's no adult supervision, and the cameraman is not supposed to interfere in any of the activities that the boys do. So, yeah, again, considering that these are children ages 10 to 11, I do not know what type of parent would consent to something like this. But the house does have a lot of toys, and there's a kitchen with ample food supplies. And I guess, like, the experiment is to see what would kids do. And so far, I've noticed that without any adults, none of them wanted to change genders. Is this something that I can say on YouTube? Anyway, things developed into a Lord of the Flies situation, as you could expect. They didn't cook any food, but they did consume a lot of sweets, a lot of energy drinks, and they completely trashed the place. I mean, only after a couple of hours, the place was almost unlivable. But what's interesting is that after the initial destruction, after the initial chaos, they did choose a leader, and then they had a pecking order, so it wasn't complete chaos. The only time that the adults stepped in for the experiment is when the kids were trying to hurt a hedgehog. And they stopped that from happening, but after that they resumed the experiment and they went it all the way to the conclusion. Now, next year, they tried the same thing with the girls. And again, without any adult in the room, none of them wanted to change genders. But this is a little bit more interesting because unlike the boys, they did not originally trash the place, at least not to the previous extent. What they did is that they actually started cooking meals, and they were collaborating with each other, and they wrote a list of chores. And this is why a lot of people on Twitter are like, oh, well, girls are better than boys. I mean, look at this, right? Well, not really, because what ends up happening is that they diverted into smaller faction. They started bullying each other, and eventually two of the girls wanted to tap out of the experiment, compared to none of the other boys that did, right? So I found it to be fascinating. Because while it looked like the girls managed to get their stuff together and it was much more civilized and pleasant, it was only on the surface. It was only in the beginning, because as things moved on, again, the bullying was so bad that two girls wanted to tap out. Like, they actually demanded that the experiment is over for them, and they returned home before 1 week passed. Meanwhile, with the boys, it was completely the opposite. Like, in the beginning, they were trashing the place and they were destroying everything. But after a while, a semblance of some order came through, and they had the leader and the pecking order, making sure that things actually remained functional. And, you know, I haven't seen the whole experiment, but I assume it wasn't fair for everyone. Like, I assume there were certain kids there that were at the bottom of the poll, and maybe they would get some bullying. But given the fact that the adults didn't decide to stop the experiment, I don't think that there was anything serious. And of course, take into account that this is done without preparation, right? Because if you were to know that, okay, well, your kid is going to go into this place and they're going to live alone for a week, a parent that would probably train the kid on how to cook, teach him how to socialize with others in such a situation, I think it would have ended up a lot better than it did. I think it wouldn't have gotten to the actual Lord of the Flies situation, and I do think that at least they would have had some proper meals rather than just eating snacks. Regarding the destruction of the house, I think like that would require a little bit more training, like maybe military training. Again, boys will be boys. I know this is a harrowing thing to say nowadays, but it's true, right? Like, they like to take things apart. They enjoy breaking stuff. I mean, all of us did, right, when we were kids. There's a lot more energy, I suppose. So I don't know if you can prevent kids from being kids at that age and just not destroying the place and making the house look like this. Because yeah, I mean, this is definitely an unpleasant place to live in. Still, the fact that they managed to live like this for 1 week, oh Dios mío. Again, it's interesting to look at the comment sections and to see what people are taking from this. And usually, again, most people are saying, well, so like the girls are better than the boys. And it's interesting because if you say the opposite, it's misogynismus. And I also noticed that for some reason we do not have gender equality anymore, because it used to be like, no, like genders are equal in every single aspect, right? It's not like equality under the law. No, like the behavior must be the same. Like Swedish quote-unquote experts were saying this nonsense, that like the behavior between men and women is identical and the only difference is because of society and other nonsense. But as you can see here, from the way the groups were formed to the interactions to the conclusion, was definitely different. Granted, you know, the experiment is small in scale. Like, you only have 10 kids, so if you repeated the experiment like maybe 100 times, you may get different results. It would also be interesting to see like what would have happened if the groups were mixed. If you had girls and boys, like how would that end up? Because as you can see, like some commentators are actually saying, well, men and women are better together. It's a balance. I mean, sure, I guess. I don't know how the men would have stopped the bullying that would happen with the girls, though. And not to mention, like, if this is at the age of 10 and 11, like, what would probably happen is you would have, like, two factions, like the girls and the boys. And they may not necessarily play very well together. But you also have, like, this one, which makes a good point. Since the kids knew that this is recorded for TV, they may have acted differently. So he claims that things would have gotten much worse eventually. As you can see, there's a lot of commentators that are like this. It's like, boys wreck the house and the girls keep it cozy. I mean, I guess if you overlook the bullying and the fact that it was so bad that two girls wanted to tap out, yeah, I guess the house was still there, sure. If you put a bunch of drunk dudes in a house, the result would be about the same. I mean, I guess, you know, like kids don't have their brain fully developed, while a person that's under the influence of the alcohol doesn't have his full functioning brain capacity, so yeah, probably. It kind of looks like a frat house, doesn't it? The cameraman had to stop them from spearing a hedgehog. Yeah, I don't really get that. Like, when I was younger, none of my friends or myself wanted to hurt animals. That was just really weird. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.